Welcome, friend. It is time to set down all the burdens of the day. Let your body sink deep into your soft bed. Tonight, we will travel deep into the heart of the ancient path, exploring the profound wisdom of compassion, the gentle and transforming force that binds the world together. Close your eyes now. Inhale deeply, allowing your chest to soften. And exhale slowly, releasing every tension you may be carrying. Do not try to think. Simply allow the stories to unfold. Welcome to Lotus Whisper, your sanctuary for deep rest and contemplative storytelling. Tonight, we begin a journey into the essence of Buddhist practice, compassion, karuna, and loving kindness, metta. We often think of compassion as a grand act of charity or a distant ideal, but the ancient stories teach us that it is the most intimate, necessary, and grounding force in our lives. It is the willingness to be tender towards suffering, both the pain we carry within our own hearts and the pain we witness in the world outside. This journey is a gentle, slow unwinding, where we explore how wisdom and kindness are the two inseparable wings that lift us toward true peace. Allow the quiet current of these deep reflections to soothe your mind and prepare your heart for rest. If these stories bring you peace, please remember to subscribe and join our quiet community so you never miss a night of deep rest. Part 1. The Two Wings of Awakening, Wisdom and Compassion. The first whisper of awakening is always tenderness. It is a slow, quiet realization that the path to peace is not carved by personal achievement, but smoothed by selfless care. The ancient teachings tell us that liberation, the ultimate freedom of the heart, requires two wings to lift us from the cycle of suffering. The first is wisdom, pana, the clear-sighted understanding of reality, that all things are impermanent, interdependent, and lack a permanent, fixed self. The second, and the one that prevents wisdom from becoming cold and purely intellectual, is compassion, karuna. That imagine these two wings in the deep quiet of the night. Wisdom is the eye that sees clearly in the dark, identifying the sharp edge of suffering and the illusion of separation. Compassion is the heart that refuses to leave anything behind, that extends its gentle warmth to the very pain wisdom has identified. Without wisdom, our compassion can be clumsy, leading to burnout and attachment. We try to fix others because we do not truly understand impermanence. But without compassion, our wisdom remains sterile, aloof, and incomplete. It becomes a fortress of knowledge rather than a welcoming shelter. True spiritual practice, the Buddha taught, is the perfect, seamless integration of both. Let us turn our minds to the oldest stories, to the very beginning of the path, when the Buddha walked the dusty roads of ancient India. He was called the Compassionate One, and his entire ministry, his 4 decades of tireless teaching, was an act of profound, unwavering compassion. He did not teach abstract philosophy for the sake of intellectual debate. He taught a practical path out of suffering because he saw the pain of existence with a clarity that was overwhelming, yet never paralyzing. There is a simple, enduring story that illustrates this perfectly. A story of an old, neglected monk named Tissa. Tissa was a figure easily overlooked within the large, bustling community of the Sangha. He was elderly, prone to illness, and perhaps, due to his poor health, lacked the meticulous care of personal hygiene that others maintained. One day, Tissa fell gravely ill. He lay in his small cell, weakened and alone, covered in his own waste. His illness made it difficult to move, and the younger monks, perhaps in their busy striving or in their human aversion to unpleasantness, simply passed by his door, offering a hurried word but no practical help. They saw his condition, but their hearts did not fully open to the quality of his suffering. It was the Buddha himself who came upon Tissa's cell. The fragrance of the flowers and incense from the main hall faded as the Buddha approached the small room. He looked upon the frail monk lying in his filth, not with disgust or even pity, but with a gaze of utter, pure recognition. He saw Tissa's pain as his own, his loneliness as a shared human condition. This was not an act of duty. It was the spontaneous flowering of a heart fully aware of interbeing. The Buddha immediately called Ananda, his attendant, to bring water. Then the awakened one, the teacher of gods and men, without a moment of hesitation, began to clean the sick monk. He gently lifted Tissa, washing his body with warm water, carefully cleaning his robes and tending to his bedding. The warmth of the water, the meticulous care, and most profoundly the touch of the master who embodied all virtue, must have been overwhelming to the frail monk. Imagine the scene. The great teacher, whose hands could touch the face of eternity, was fully present in this small, unpleasant act of service. There was no thought of status, no barrier of cleanliness, only the clear, simple intention to relieve suffering now. This is karuna in its naked, physical form. When the work was done and Tissa lay clean and refreshed, the Buddha sat down beside him. He did not immediately speak of the Dharma. He simply waited, allowing the physical comfort to settle the monk's mind. Then he asked Tissa why the other monks had not helped him. Tissa, feeling ashamed and weak, could only explain that he had little strength and perhaps his companions had forgotten him. The Buddha then called all the monks of the monastery together. He spoke to them not in anger, but with the quiet, penetrating firmness of deep love. He asked, "Monks, what reason did you have for not waiting upon this sick monk? Have you no father, no mother, no brother or sister?" They responded, "Lord, we had no reason." And then the Buddha gave a teaching that is the cornerstone of the entire tradition. He looked at them and said, "He who would wait upon me, let him wait upon the sick." This is the profound lesson of the two wings. The monks had the wisdom of the teachings. They could recite the Dharma. They could meditate. They could discuss non-self. But their wisdom was incomplete because it lacked the immediate, compassionate application. They saw a sick monk and recognized impermanence, but they did not recognize the immediacy of suffering. The Buddha was telling them that true reverence for the Master is not found in bowing to his statue or chanting his words, but in acting with the same care and selfless love that he embodied. The sick monk, the needy person, the struggling friend, they are the true manifestation of the Buddha whom we must serve. Your service to the suffering is your meditation on the Dharma. Your kindness is your highest offering. When you lie here in the deep quiet, think about the hands of the Buddha washing the sick monk. It is a teaching on presence. The Buddha did not think, "I am too important for this task." He simply saw the suffering and responded. His mind was utterly free of the thought of a separate self. No I who cleans. No him who is dirty. There was only the act of purification, born from pure awareness. This is the power of compassion in the stillness. It is the ability to move beyond your own comfort, beyond your own small preoccupations, and to see the world not as a collection of separate problems, but as a single, connected web of life that aches for relief. The ancient stories teach us that compassion is not an emotion. It is a discipline. It is a continuous practice of opening the heart again and again, especially when the mind wants to close down, judge, or run away. Consider the story of Angulimala, the terrifying serial killer. This is a story that pushes the boundary of what we think compassion can accomplish. Angulimala was a man consumed by darkness, driven by a twisted vow to collect 1,000 fingers from his victims. He was so feared that entire villages emptied at the sound of his name, and the king himself prepared an army to hunt him down. When the Buddha heard that Angulimala was near, he walked alone toward the forest where the murderer lived. His disciples were terrified and begged him not to go, but the Buddha's mind, clear in its wisdom of karma and interbeing, knew that even the deepest darkness is only the absence of light, not its permanent destruction. Angulimala spotted the solitary figure and saw him as his final, 1,000th victim. He dropped his usual caution and ran full speed toward the Buddha, sword raised. But despite running with all his fearsome might, he could not catch the Buddha, who walked at a calm, normal pace. This is a subtle teaching. The stillness of an awakened mind moves faster and is ultimately stronger than the frantic energy of fear and hatred. Exhausted, Angulimala finally shouted, "Stop, ascetic, stop!" The Buddha turned and looked at the man who was the personification of hatred and violence. He did not flinch. He did not cast a magic spell. He did not judge. He simply spoke from the stillness of his realized heart, his voice a balm against the desert wind. "I have stopped, Angulimala," the Buddha replied. "It is you who have not stopped." These simple words were a koan that pierced the illusion in Angulimala's mind. The Buddha had stopped the cycle of craving and killing within himself long ago. He stood in pure presence. Angulimala, despite stopping his feet, had a mind that was still running furiously in the cycle of violence, guilt, and hatred. In that moment, the compassion of the Buddha was not soft or sentimental. It was fierce wisdom. It was a direct, clear-eyed recognition of the pain that drove Angulimala's violence. The Buddha saw that the murderer was the first and deepest victim of his own mind. This pure, non-judgmental seeing was the force that broke through the years of darkness. Angulimala threw down his sword. The story tells us he was utterly transformed, not by fear or force, but by the sheer, overwhelming power of a compassion that recognized his innate potential for goodness. He joined the Sangha, and eventually, through diligent practice, he too became awakened. What does this deep, ancient story offer us as we lie down to rest? It tells us that our heart's capacity for compassion is boundless, reaching even to the darkest corners of human experience. It challenges us to look upon our own mistakes, our own inner conflicts, and the difficult people in our lives with the same unflinching wisdom and radical acceptance the Buddha showed Angulimala. This is the essence of true practice. It is not found in comfortable sanctuaries, but in the places where suffering is most intense. It is the steady light of loving kindness, metta, that shines even when the mind tells us to pull back, to protect ourselves, to judge. Allow yourself to feel the gentle rhythm of your breathing now. Inhale, deep wisdom. Exhale, pure compassion. In the deep quiet, there is a tenderness waiting to be discovered, a force far stronger than any armor you can wear. It is the boundless heart of the awakened one, a heart that sees your suffering, meets it without judgment, and invites you to lay your burdens down, not by ignoring them, but by holding them with profound, steady care. Let the image of the two wings, wisdom and compassion, be your guide now. They are not two separate things. They are the complete movement of an awakened life. Allow them to carry you toward rest, toward the stillness where all separation dissolves and only pure kindness remains. Part 2. The Mirror of Interbeing. When self meets other. Sink deeper now into your pillow. Feel the gentle, supportive presence of the surface beneath you. Allow the stories to become not something you listen to, but a space you inhabit. In the quiet darkness, we turn our attention to the philosophical foundation that makes true compassion possible, the wisdom of interbeing. We have been taught since we were small to believe in the boundary of the skin. We believe that we begin here and in there. Our thoughts are ours, our suffering is mine, and the world outside is a distant, separate realm to be negotiated, fought with, or feared. This deep-seated belief in a separate self, a lonely I struggling against a vast and different universe, is the source of all our hardest struggles. It is the root of the loneliness that often keeps us awake. The ancient wisdom of the Buddha gently exposes this illusion. He taught the truth of anatta, non-self, showing us that there is no fixed, permanent entity inside us. We are an ever-changing flow of conditions. And from this deep understanding of non-self arises the insight of interbeing. Tuong tuk. Interbeing tells us that you are not an isolated island. You are a vast, intricate ecosystem, woven seamlessly into the fabric of life. Your existence is utterly dependent on everything outside you. The cloud that becomes the rain that grows the rice you eat, the breath of the distant forest, the warm light of the sun, the kindness of strangers, and the labor of generations past. You are quite literally made of the whole cosmos. The cloud is in the paper. The forest is in your breath. If this is true, that you are not separate, then compassion is not a moral duty, but a spontaneous, inevitable response. When you see suffering in the world, you are not seeing a stranger's problem. You are seeing a strain in the fabric of which you are made. To heal the world is to heal yourself. To ease the suffering of another is to ease the deep collective ache in your own heart. Let us find a place in the deep stillness of an ancient Zen monastery, nestled high in the mountains, where the only sound is the rustle of bamboo and the gentle sweep of the master's broom across the stone courtyard. In this monastery lived a young monk named Kensho. Kensho was diligent in his meditation, sharp in his studies of the koans, and utterly sincere in his desire for enlightenment. Yet his practice was marked by a deep sense of striving and an invisible wall he held up against the imperfections of the world. He was a perfect monk, but he was often lonely. He was practicing for himself, not as himself, connected to all things. One crisp, clear morning, the abbot of the monastery, an old woman named Master Eiko, gave Kensho a task. "Go to the lower village," she instructed, her voice like soft, dry leaves, "and return with the purest, clearest water from the mountain spring. Do not hurry, simply observe the path." Kensho bowed and began his journey down the winding, narrow path. He was already thinking ahead. How can I ensure the water stays perfectly clear? I must walk carefully. This task is a test of my mindfulness. His mind was focused entirely on the purity of the outcome, the perfection of his own execution. As he descended, the path grew rougher, shifting from clean, swept earth to the uneven stones of the village outskirts. And there, near the stream that fed the spring, he saw a sight that broke the quiet rhythm of his concentration. A large, sturdy pig, belonging to a farmer, had somehow slipped its pen and managed to wedge itself between two massive old tree roots near the bank of the stream. It was utterly trapped. Its hind legs were immobilized, and it thrashed desperately, a low, terrified whine coming from its throat. The pig was covered in mud and foam, and its panicked efforts only drove it deeper into the root's unforgiving embrace. Kensho stopped. His first thought was one of annoyance, a thought that immediately exposed his inner wall. This is an unseemly interruption. I must retrieve the pure water. This animal is dirty, distracting, and not my concern. He had years of training that told him to focus on the eternal, the transcendent, and to dismiss the messy, struggling world of samsara. He was tempted to walk around the scene, keeping his robes pristine and his mind centered on his own task. But Master Aiko's quiet instruction echoed in his memory. Simply observe the path. He observed. He did not observe the pig. He observed the suffering. He watched the desperate struggle, the fear in the pig's small eyes, the sheer exhaustion of a life force utterly trapped by conditions it could not control. As he watched, the boundary between Kensho the pure-minded monk and the trapped, muddy pig began to soften. He felt, quite suddenly and violently, the fear in his own chest. He recognized the feeling of being trapped by his own expectations, trapped by the fear of not being good enough, trapped by the relentless striving of his own mind. He, too, was pressed between two unyielding forces, the spiritual demand for perfection and the messy reality of being human. The squealing of the pig was not separate from his own inner whine of frustration. The mud on the pig was no dirtier than the unexamined emotional mud he carried inside his own heart. The suffering was not out there, it was shared. This sudden, profound awareness, this mirror of interbeing, was a moment of true awakening, more powerful than any koan he had ever solved. Kensho put down the empty, perfect porcelain bowl he carried. He put it down gently, letting it rest on a clean patch of grass, symbolizing the temporary setting aside of his own spiritual ambition. He stepped into the thick mud. The work was hard and physically demanding. The pig was heavy with fear and muscle. Kensho had to lie almost flat on his belly, using all his strength to heave the massive animal away from the roots. Slowly, patiently, one muscle at a time, the mud seeped into his robes, covering his hands, his face, and his hair. His careful, clean robes, the symbol of his separate, striving identity, were ruined. For a long time there was only the sound of struggle, heavy breathing, and the wet, clinging sound of the mud. Kensho was no longer thinking about enlightenment. He was not thinking about purity. He was not thinking, I am helping a pig. He was only thinking, ease this pain, ease this contraction. His action was pure karuna, the spontaneous desire to relieve suffering, flowing directly from the wisdom of interbeing. Finally, with a great wet heave, the pig was free. It did not thank him. It did not pause. It scrambled wildly out of the roots, shook itself once, splattering Kensho with a final spray of mud, and ran off into the trees, leaving only a wide trail of disturbance in its wake. Kensho sat back on the muddy bank. He was exhausted, wet, and truly, utterly filthy. He looked at his hands, which no longer looked like the hands of a striving monk, but simply like the hands of the earth, mixed with the animal, mixed with the life of the riverbank. But his mind? His mind was cleaner, clearer, and more at peace than it had ever been on the meditation cushion. The knot of striving in his stomach was gone. The wall around his heart had dissolved. In that moment of complete, unreserved physical service, his separate self had momentarily vanished. There was no Kensho. There was only the flow of action, the connection of shared life, the reality of suffering and its relief. He picked up the empty porcelain bowl. It was still clean. The irony was not lost on him. He had failed the superficial task. He was late, he was dirty, and he had not yet collected the water. But he had passed the profound test. He had finally collected the purest, clearest substance of all: unconditional compassion. He walked slowly back up the mountain. He did not mind the mud. He realized the mud was just the earth, and he was the earth, and the pig was the earth. His entire spiritual life had shifted. Compassion was no longer something he did after his meditation. It was the substance of his realized state. When he reached the monastery, he went directly to Master Aiko. She did not need to ask any questions. She took one look at his mud-soaked robes, his tired but utterly peaceful eyes, and the empty clean bowl, and she smiled, a rare, profound smile. "The water is pure, Kensho," she said. "The water is perfectly clear. You have seen that the one who suffers is the one who serves." This ancient principle of interbeing, that the observer and the observed, the giver and the receiver are one, is the great teaching of rest we need tonight. When you lie down, your mind may be trapped, thrashing between the roots of anxiety and worry. The mind often feels like that terrified, dirty pig, unable to free itself. The teaching of interbeing asks you to stop seeing your suffering as separate, as your fault, or your burden alone. Your anxiety is not a personal failure. It is the natural tremor of a human nervous system connected to a vast, rapidly changing, and often painful world. When you offer compassion to your own difficulty, you are not indulging yourself. You are, like Kensho, stepping into the mud of shared existence. You are saying, "This pain is not just mine. It is the human condition, and because I am part of the whole, I will be kind to this part of the whole that is struggling right now." This act of self-compassion is the starting point of true service. When you soften your shoulders, when you relax your jaw, when you allow the fear you are holding to simply be seen, you are sending a ripple of ease through the entire web of interbeing. When one strand of the net is eased, the whole net becomes a little softer. Allow the thought to dissolve now. I must fight this feeling. Replace it with the quiet realization, this feeling is part of the world, and I meet it with tenderness. The world needs your ease. Your rest tonight is not merely for your own benefit. It is a contribution to the peace of all beings. When your body softens, when your breathing deepens, when your mind finds stillness, you are nourishing the very ground of life. You are a cleaner, clearer vessel for the compassion that wants to flow through you tomorrow. You are the quiet monk in the mud, and you are the struggling creature. There is no separation. Embrace the beautiful, messy, interconnected whole that you are. Allow the deep peace of this realization to finally carry you toward rest. You are not alone. You are the universe, tending to its own quiet heart. The path of shared pain, karuna, the deep listening. Rest now in the understanding that you are not separate. The gentle realization of interbeing from our last reflection opens the door to the deepest form of love, a love the ancient ones called karuna. Karuna is often translated simply as compassion, but its root meaning is far more intimate and profound. It is sometimes described as the trembling of the heart when confronted with suffering. It is not pity, which often holds a subtle distance, a sense of superiority. Karuna is the spontaneous, non-negotiable reaction of a fully connected heart that cannot remain still when a part of the whole is aching. It is the wisdom that says, "Your pain is the wound in the body of life, and I am that body. Therefore, I ache too." The practice of karuna is the discipline of deep listening. It is the ability to bear witness, to be fully present with pain, our own and that of others, without immediately trying to fix it, judge it, or run away from it. The natural impulse of the mind, when it sees suffering, is to move into distraction or immediate action. But karuna asks for stillness. It asks us to hold the space, to allow the pain to be felt, knowing that this recognition, this quiet presence, is often the most profound medicine of all. Tonight, let us follow the journey of a woman whose grief was so absolute, so devastating, that it became a legend, a raw, unforgettable teaching on the nature of shared human pain. This is the story of Kisa Gotami. Kisa Gotami was a young woman living in the bustling city of Savatthi. Her life had been touched by a rare and beautiful joy. She had given birth to a son, a quiet, perfect boy who quickly became the center of her universe. For her, this child was a beacon of light, a guarantee of happiness, a promise against the darkness of the world. She lived only for his smile, his touch, the small, rhythmic sound of his breath as he slept beside her. One clear morning, the unimaginable occurred. The boy, in the sudden, silent way that life often changes, fell gravely ill. Kisa Gotami watched in horror as the light faded from his eyes. His small, warm body grew cold. Her perfect, permanent world shattered into a million pieces. Her mind, unable to process the absolute finality of this disaster, refused to accept the truth. She could not comprehend that her son was dead. Her love was too great, her devotion too intense to allow such an ending. In her deep, wrenching delusion, she lifted the child's lifeless body and carried him in her arms, running wildly through the streets of Savatthi. She approached every neighbor, every friend, every person she saw, pleading with them. Her voice was thin and desperate, cutting through the ordinary sounds of the day. "My son is only ill. He is not dead. Give me medicine. Does anyone know the medicine that can bring him back?" The people looked upon her with a mixture of pity and terror. They were afraid of her grief, afraid of the chilling reminder of their own mortality that she carried. Some gently told her, "My dear woman, your son is gone. There is no remedy for this." Others, dismissing her as mad, simply turned away. But one kind man, seeing that her mind was utterly consumed by the fever of her own denial, suggested a path. Perhaps he knew the truth of her suffering, or perhaps he was himself a subtle practitioner of compassion. "My daughter," he said gently, "I do not know the medicine that you seek, but I know one who does. Go to the awakened one. Go to the Buddha." And so, driven by the last, frantic flicker of hope, Kisa Gotami went to the monastery where the Buddha was teaching. She burst into the peaceful enclosure, her eyes wild, her robes dusty, her dead child clutched tightly against her breast. She did not bow. She did not observe decorum. She simply cried out her plea, laying her burden before the Master. "Lord Buddha, you are the healer of the world. Give me the medicine to bring my son back to life." The Buddha looked at her. His gaze was steady, calm, and utterly without judgment. He saw the full extent of her pain, the mother's bond, the shock of loss, the denial that was tearing her mind apart. He did not immediately speak of death or the Dharma. He met her raw, urgent suffering with profound karuna. He knew that a direct answer would be rejected. Her heart was too fractured to absorb the truth of impermanence. So, he gave her a task, a piece of skillful means, born entirely of compassion. "Go, Kisa Gotami," the Buddha said, his voice a deep, resonant comfort that seemed to reach the very core of her soul. "I will give you the medicine, but you must bring me one thing first. Go into the city and bring me a handful of mustard seeds." Relief flooded her face. A handful of seeds. This was simple. This was something she could do. But then, the Buddha added the single, essential condition, the key that would unlock her heart from its prison of personalized grief. "The seeds," he continued, "must be gathered from a house where no one has ever died." Kisa Gotami, filled with renewed, desperate energy, rushed back to the city. She went to the first house, her voice ringing out with hope. "The Buddha needs a handful of mustard seeds. He will make medicine for my son. Has anyone in this house ever died?" The people were happy to give her the seeds, reaching into their stores. But then they paused, saddened by her question. "Child," they told her gently, "do not ask us that. The number of the living here is small, but the number of the dead is vast. How can you find a house where no one has died?" The hope in her began to falter, but she moved on. She went to a wealthy man's mansion, its walls high and strong. "Has anyone died here?" "My parents died here," the servants replied. "My master's wife died here, and their first child." She went to a poor woman's hut, its roof thin and frail. "Has anyone died here?" The old woman smiled sadly. "My husband died. My 2 sons died. And only yesterday, my sister's baby died in my arms." Kisa Gotami ran through the city, from door to door, from the grandest homes to the humblest dwellings. Her journey became a slow, relentless immersion into the universal nature of suffering. With every house, the story was the same. Every kitchen had known a tear. Every doorway had seen a departure. Every family had felt the cold hand of loss. She could not find a single handful of seeds that was untainted by the shadow of death. As the sun began to sink below the horizon, casting long, peaceful shadows, Kisa Gotami's frantic energy finally evaporated. She stopped in the marketplace, the dead child still in her arms. But now, she saw the child not as her personal possession, a unique tragedy. She saw him as part of the vast, unending rhythm of the world. She saw that the anguish that had blinded her was not hers alone, but the shared experience of every living being. Her personalized grief dissolved into a vast, oceanic sorrow that was no longer consuming, but strangely calming. It was the sorrow of the universe, and in realizing its universality, she was finally able to put her own heavy burden down. She took her son's body to the cremation ground, laid him down in the quiet earth, and spoke her surrender to the stillness. "The law of change is the law of the world," she whispered. "This is not Kisa Gotami's law. This is everyone's law." When she returned to the Buddha, she did not need to speak of the mustard seeds. She simply stood before him, calm, exhausted, and profoundly awakened. The Buddha looked at her and said, The struggle is over, Kisagotami. You have found the medicine. The medicine was not the seed. The medicine was the realization of shared suffering. Her journey through the city was a profound act of karuna, not extended by her, but extended to her and experienced by her. The Buddha did not try to argue her out of her grief. He led her on a walk through the deepest truth of interbeing and impermanence until she could see the truth for herself. This is the essence of karuna. It is the heart's willingness to step into the shared current of human experience. It is the wisdom that understands there is no such thing as isolated pain. Your struggle with anxiety tonight is connected to the struggles of millions of others throughout time. Your frustration with a difficult moment is the same frustration that has been felt by every human heart since the beginning. When you hold your own pain with this awareness, when you say, "This is not just me, this is the human condition moving through me," the pain loses its sharp, personal edge. It softens. It becomes vast. And in that vastness, there is room for rest. Tonight, as you settle deeper into the quiet, allow the story of Kisagotami to be your guide. If a worry arises or a regret from the day returns, do not fight it. Instead, offer it the mustard seed quest. Ask yourself, is this a unique worry that no other human has ever carried? You will find every single time that the answer is no. Your struggle is ordinary, and the ordinariness of it is precisely what connects you, not what isolates you. Let your breathing become the rhythm of karuna now. Inhale, I see this pain. Exhale, I hold this pain with the same tenderness I would offer any other suffering being. This deep listening, this patient bearing witness to the movement of life and death, joy and sorrow, in your own heart, is the foundation of all true compassion. You are healing the world simply by being present to the truth of your own experience. Allow yourself to rest in that profound connection. The radical act of self-compassion. Let your mind drift now from the busy streets of Savatthi and the tears of Kisagotami. We turn our gaze inward, for the ancient path teaches us that before we can truly touch the suffering of the world with karuna, we must first find the courage to touch our own. Sink down into the deepest comfort your body can find. Feel the weight of your head, the slow rise and fall of your belly. In this quiet, secret space, we confront the most difficult subject of all, self-compassion. It is the radical, profound truth of the Dharma that the greatest barrier to giving love is not a shortage of love in the world, but a fierce, relentless judgment in our own hearts. For many of us, the spiritual life becomes another area for striving and self-criticism. We become brilliant at seeing the struggles of others. We are generous, empathetic, and kind to every stranger we meet. But when we turn that same attention inward, our gaze hardens. The inner voice is sharp, impatient, and demanding. You should have done better. You should be further along. You should not be tired. You are failing. We believe that this inner harshness is necessary, that it is the engine of discipline that drives us forward. We fear that if we soften the critique, we will become lazy, self-indulgent, or weak. The ancient masters gently expose this fear as the deepest form of delusion. They teach us that this relentless self-judgment is not discipline. It is simply another form of suffering, another attachment to the idea of a fixed, perfect self we are failing to become. The simple truth is this: you cannot give away what you do not have. If your inner well is dry from constant self-attack, any compassion you offer the world will soon turn into resentment, exhaustion, or burnout. True service, boundless karuna, must flow from an unshakable inner kindness. The Buddha's teaching on the second arrow is the perfect map for this terrain. Imagine yourself walking a path through a quiet forest. Suddenly you stumble, and a sharp thorn, a literal arrow, pierces your skin. The pain is immediate and undeniable. This is the first arrow of life. It represents the inevitable, unavoidable suffering that comes with being alive. Loss, sickness, betrayal, disappointment, change, and aging. It hurts, but it is the nature of existence. Now, imagine that immediately after the first arrow strikes, you begin to shoot a second arrow at yourself. This second arrow is the pain that is optional, the pain that is self-created by the mind's reaction. Why was I so clumsy? I should have seen that coming. I am always falling. This pain is unbearable and unfair. I am weak for feeling this much. The Buddha asked, why do we shoot ourselves with a second arrow when the first is already lodged deeply in the heart? The teaching on self-compassion is simply the deliberate, conscious refusal to fire that second arrow. When the inevitable pain of life arrives, when you feel tired, when you make a mistake at work, when your body is aching, when a relationship brings sorrow, the first arrow is present. Self-compassion is the wisdom that, instead of reacting with judgment, responds with gentleness. When the mind screams, I should be stronger, self-compassion whispers, ah, the body is tired. This is human exhaustion. I will rest. When the mind insists, I am a failure, self-compassion observes, ah, a mistake was made. This is how we learn. I will be kind to the learning process. This act is radical because it cuts against the conditioning of 1,000 generations that believed pain was necessary for purity, and self-flagellation was the price of virtue. The Buddha taught the middle way, a path where discipline is born of love, not fear. Let us turn to a quieter story, one that takes place not in the great halls of debate, but in the small, unseen corner
of an old woman's cottage. There was a young nun named Dhammananda. She was known for her incredible devotion to the poor of the village near her convent. Every day, regardless of the weather, she would walk the long, rocky path down the mountain, carrying food, medicine, and clean water. She would stay for hours, patiently tending to the sick, listening to the lonely, and teaching the children. She was a beacon of external karuna. Yet, when she returned to her small, simple hut each evening, she was not peaceful. She was consumed by a quiet, gnawing frustration. I didn't do enough. The old man is still sick. The child I taught today still looked hungry. I am exhausted, and my exhaustion means I am not pure enough. If I were a true bodhisattva, I would not feel tired. Her mind was trapped in the loop of the second arrow. The first arrow was the inevitable, exhausting reality of suffering in the village. The second arrow was her self-judgment, that she should be immune to that exhaustion, that her love should be a limitless, non-tiring machine. She would push herself harder and harder. She ate less, slept less, and prayed more intensely, confusing self-denial with spiritual power. Her body became thin and frail, her eyes perpetually strained. She was on the verge of collapsing from physical and spiritual burnout, believing she was failing the path of compassion. One day, her teacher, an old wise master named Vimala, observed Dhammananda stumbling back up the mountain path. Vimala had been watching her gentle external actions and her harsh inner turmoil for many months. When Dhammananda finally collapsed onto her rough mat, too weak to even light her oil lamp, Vimala entered the room. She did not bring a philosophical text. She did not offer a grand lecture on emptiness. She simply brought a small clay bowl of warm, soothing herbal tea and a basin of cool water. Vimala did not speak. She simply knelt beside the exhausted nun and gently began to tend to her raw, blistered feet. She washed the dust and mud from the sores caused by the rocky path, carefully drying them and rubbing in a simple cooling balm made from mountain herbs. Dhammananda, accustomed only to tending to others, burst into silent tears. She had allowed her feet, the very instruments of her compassion, to suffer in silence, believing they were unimportant compared to the great work of the world. As Vimala worked, she finally spoke, her voice low and calm, a quiet melody in the deepening twilight. "Dhammananda," she said, "you are striving to be a torch for the entire village. This is noble. But tell me, my child, when a lamp is burning, where does the flame get its light? Does it beg the darkness for fuel? No. The flame draws its light from the oil it carries. If you burn yourself up to light the world, you will leave nothing but cold ash. And what good is cold ash to the suffering?" Dhammananda whispered. "But Master, I felt I had to push. If I rest, if I am kind to myself, I am being selfish. My pain is small compared to theirs." Vimala shook her head slowly. "Your pain is not small. It is the center of the web. It is the alarm in the engine. And your fear that you will become selfish is the greatest illusion. True selfishness is hoarding resources. True compassion is ensuring your own well is full, so the water you draw for others is fresh and clean. When you abuse your own body and mind, you are not acting from compassion. You are acting from fear. The fear that you are not good enough. The fear that only self-punishment will motivate you. This is attachment to a harsh self-image." Vimala finished bandaging one foot, held it gently, and looked into the young nun's eyes. "Your first, most sacred vow is to sustain the vessel. Your body is the temple of your service. Tend to it, rest it, forgive it. When you rest with true, loving awareness, you are not taking time away from the world. You are replenishing the very life force the world requires of you." From that day forward, Dhammananda's practice changed. She still served the village, but she did it with a quiet, sustainable pace. She learned to pause when she felt tired, to eat when she was hungry, and to treat her own body with the same reverence she showed the most revered monk. And something miraculous happened. Her service became more effective, more genuine, and far more joyful. Her presence was no longer laced with the frantic energy of martyrdom, but with the steady, deep wellspring of peace. This story teaches us the difference between pity and karuna. Pity can be directed outwards, but often fails to include the self. Karuna, true compassion, is non-discriminating. It embraces the entire field of suffering, and that field always includes your own aching human heart. Now as you settle, bring this profound wisdom into your own body. Where are you holding the second arrow tonight? Perhaps it is tension in your jaw, holding words you didn't say, or judgments you received. Gently soften the muscle. Perhaps it is a knot in your stomach, a worry about tomorrow, a feeling of inadequacy about the day that is past. Gently allow the muscle to unclench. Perhaps it is your shoulders, held high near your ears, carrying the weight of responsibilities you feel you must bear alone. Soften them down toward the earth. This simple act of physical release is a profound act of self-compassion. It is telling your body, with the simple wisdom of Vimala's touch, you are doing enough. You are worthy of rest. I will be kind to the instrument of my life.
We can formalize this with the ancient practice of metta, loving kindness, directed toward ourselves. Metta is the cultivation of unconditional goodwill, the radiant wish that all beings, including ourselves, be happy and free from suffering. Take a slow, deep breath, and as you exhale, send that soft warmth inward into the center of your own chest. Repeat these phrases silently, not as a demanding mantra, but as a gentle, tender offering. If the words feel difficult or untrue, simply notice the resistance and offer kindness to the resistance itself. May I be free from danger. May I be safe from harm, both internal and external. May the busy, anxious voice in my head release its grip. May I have mental happiness. May my mind find peace and ease. May I be free from the torment of regret and worry. May I have physical happiness. May my body be healthy and strong. May I find comfort and relief in this moment of rest. May I take care of myself easily. May I be able to sustain my well-being with grace and wisdom. May I give myself the rest I need without guilt. These are not wishes for perfection. They are not demands. They are simply the quiet, powerful affirmation that you are worthy of kindness right now, exactly as you are. The ultimate radical act is to realize that your pain, your flaws, your human struggle are not obstacles to compassion, but the very ground from which it grows. You do not wait until you are perfect to love yourself. You love yourself now, precisely in your imperfection, because that unconditional acceptance is the only thing that can truly heal the wound of the second arrow. When you offer this love to yourself, your energy changes, your presence softens, your actions flow from a place of sufficiency, not depletion. You are no longer serving the world from a state of need, but from a state of profound, quiet fullness. This is the inner peace that sustains all the great acts of karuna. Allow the gentle current of this self-acceptance to deepen your rest. Let go of the need to strive. You are not a machine. You are a human being. Be kind to the one who is lying here now. The journey of compassion begins and ends with this simple, tender acknowledgement. I am here, and I am enough. Rest now in the safety of your own boundless heart. Metta, the boundless radiance of loving kindness. Allow the warmth of self-compassion to settle deep within your bones. Feel the quiet assurance that you have given yourself permission to rest, to be imperfect, and to be human. Now, from this secure and tender inner ground, we can turn our attention outward and explore the most radiant of the four sublime states, metta, or loving kindness. If karuna is the trembling of the heart when facing suffering, the spontaneous impulse to relieve pain, then metta is the sunshine that makes all life possible. It is the active, unconditional wish for the happiness, well-being, and genuine flourishing of all beings without exception. Metta is the purest form of friendship, an expansive goodwill that makes no distinction between friend, foe, or stranger. It is the spiritual equivalent of the sun, shining equally on the mountaintop and the muddy valley, without effort or expectation of return. The practice of metta is not sentimental. It is a profound, subtle spiritual discipline.
It is the work of systematically dismantling the small, separate walls of the mind.
Builds between us and them, between my concern and the world's. It is the realization that the deepest happiness is not a private treasure to be guarded, but a boundless field to be shared. The more you wish others well, the more spacious and unburdened your own heart becomes. The ancient teachers taught metta as a progressive, methodical meditation, a way of training the heart to expand slowly, gently, reliably. As you lie here in the deep quiet, we will walk through these stages, allowing the warmth of loving kindness to expand through your own quiet sanctuary. We begin, as we must, with the self. Although we explored self-compassion earlier, here we reaffirm it as the non-negotiable foundation. You cannot radiate genuine kindness from a place of inner scarcity. If you feel ill will toward yourself, if you deny your own worthiness, the metta you try to send to others will feel strained, insincere, or quickly run dry. Take a deep, gentle breath now and settle that feeling of basic, inherent goodness into your core. May I be happy. May I be safe. May I be well. This is the first necessary act of love. Now we move the gaze slightly outward to those who are loved and dear. This is the easiest stage, the natural flow of human affection. Bring to mind one by one the people whose presence lights up your life: a child, a parent, a dear friend, a partner. Do not summon them in detail. Simply allow the feeling of warmth and gratitude to rise in your chest. They are easy to love. They are easy to wish well. As you hold each image in the gentle light of your awareness, repeat the phrases of metta. May you be safe. May you be happy. May you be free from suffering. Feel the warmth intensify, an easy, quiet current of goodwill. This step is crucial because it generates the pure, uncomplicated energy of kindness that you will use in the next stages. It reminds the heart what true, effortless metta feels like. Next, we move to the most profound and necessary stage for breaking down the walls of self-concern: the neutral person. Think now of someone you encounter regularly but know little about: the quiet cashier at the market, the driver in the car next to you, the neighbor whose name you cannot recall, the person you only see on your morning commute. They are not loved, but they are not disliked. They are simply part of the background. It is precisely in this neutrality that the true work of metta begins. It is easy to love a friend and easy to fear an enemy. But what about the millions of lives that pass through your periphery? They have hopes, fears, heartaches, and dreams identical to your own. They are struggling just as hard, striving just as earnestly. When you offer metta to the neutral person, you shatter the illusion that only the people important to your life story are worthy of your attention. You affirm the universal dignity of every single human being. This is often the quietest stage, the least dramatic, but it is the strongest glue of society. As you lie still, choose a neutral person, someone you can barely picture, and send them the light of your goodwill. May you be safe. May you be happy. May you be well. This quiet, non-discriminating act is the essence of peace. Finally, we come to the great challenge, the true spiritual test, the difficult person. Bring to mind someone who has caused you pain, someone you resent, someone whose presence triggers anger or fear, or someone whose actions you fundamentally disagree with. Do not bring the full narrative of the hurt into your mind. Simply bring the image of the person, held at a respectful, safe distance.
The goal here is not hypocrisy or self-deception. You are not being asked to pretend that the hurt did not happen, or that the person's actions were right. That would be a failure of wisdom. Instead, metta asks you to look beyond the action to the suffering that must be driving it. The ancient wisdom reminds us, no being who is truly happy, truly at peace, and truly free from fear goes out into the world to cause harm. Hatred is simply suffering wearing an ugly mask. The anger you receive is merely the second-hand smoke of someone else's inner turmoil. When you offer metta to the difficult person, you are not absolving them of responsibility. You are performing a radical act of self-liberation. You are releasing your heart from the prison of resentment. You are saying, I wish for your release from the suffering that drives your harmful actions. May you be free from that pain, so that you may cease to cause pain to others. Take a breath, soften your heart, and offer the quietest, most sincere whisper. May you be free from suffering. May you find happiness. This simple act, the willingness to include the one who hurts you in the circle of your kindness, is the pinnacle of spiritual maturity. It is the purification of the heart. Once these stages are established, the final stage is simply the natural outflow. All beings. The heart, having been stretched and purified, naturally expands. You simply release the boundary, allowing your metta to flow outward to all corners of the world, to the birds outside your window, to the unseen creatures of the sea, to the people in the quiet houses around you, and to every single being, visible and invisible. May all beings be safe. May all beings be happy. May all beings be well. To understand the profound, non-discriminating power of this metta, we turn to one of the most famous stories of the Buddha's life, a story that proves loving kindness is not just a soft feeling, but a literal, physical force. The story of the elephant Nalagiri. Nalagiri was a fierce, massive royal elephant, known for his uncontrollable temper and immense strength. He was a force of nature, terrifying, powerful, and utterly driven by instinct. At this time, Devadatta, the Buddha's cousin, was consumed by jealousy and ill will. He continuously plotted to undermine and even harm the Buddha. His final, most nefarious plot was to weaponize Nalagiri. Devadatta knew the elephant was prone to rages, so he gave the keepers vast amounts of liquor, intoxicating the beast until it was maddened with rage and confusion. He then had the maddened elephant released onto the street through which the Buddha was known to walk for his morning alms round. The plan was terrifyingly effective. Nalagiri, wild with alcohol and fury, tore through the city streets. People screamed and fled, crushing one another in panic as they tried to escape the path of the enormous, unstoppable force. Houses were damaged, stalls were shattered, and the street became a scene of absolute chaos and terror. The raging elephant was a physical embodiment of unchecked hatred, dosa, tearing apart the fragile peace of the community. The Buddha, accompanied by his attendant Ananda, approached this terrible scene. Ananda was overcome with fear and pleaded with the master to turn back. "Lord, the elephant is mad. Its power is too great. We must retreat." But the Buddha was unmoved. His awareness was utterly clear, his mind steady in the boundless space of metta. He saw the elephant not as a malicious monster, but as a suffering being, driven insane by external forces,
the liquor and the evil intent of Devadatta. He saw that the elephant was, in essence, a captive, suffering from the violence that was pouring through its own body. He continued walking, calmly, deliberately, his steps slow and rhythmic. As the Buddha came into view, the massive elephant paused for a moment, its terrifying eyes meeting the Buddha's clear, compassionate gaze. Then, driven by the poison, Nalagiri charged. The ground shook with the weight of its rage, but as the elephant closed the final distance, something miraculous happened. The Buddha did not raise a shield. He did not recite a protective mantra of power. He simply surrounded the charging beast with the pure, unwavering radiation of metta. The ancient texts describe this moment in profound detail. The Buddha's mind was like the vast sky, containing all things, yet untouched by any storm. The torrent of metta flowing from him, the pure wish for Nalagiri's safety and happiness, was so potent, so genuine, that it was a literal, palpable force. As the elephant reached the Buddha, it suddenly, violently stopped. The momentum of the charge was broken, not by physical resistance, but by the sheer, non-aggressive power of unconditional kindness. The immense animal, trembling with the courage of skillful means. You have felt the deep, expansive warmth of metta, the quiet wish for happiness that flows from the heart. Now, as you sink into the gentle embrace of the night, we explore a deeper, often misunderstood facet of compassion. It's courage. True compassion is not passive. It is an active force. It is not merely the soft consent to everything that occurs. Sometimes it must be the fierce, wise hand that cuts through delusion. The ancient tradition calls this upaya, or skillful means. We tend to imagine a compassionate person as forever soft-spoken, always agreeing, never challenging. But wisdom shows us that if a child is playing with a poisonous snake, true love does not sweetly ask the child to stop. It snatches the snake away with sudden, decisive force. That sudden, seemingly harsh action, born purely of the intention to prevent suffering, is skillful means. It is compassion operating with clear-sighted wisdom, willing to be unpopular or misunderstood in the service of liberation. The principle is simple. The motive must be pure karuna, love and wisdom, but the method must be appropriate to the situation. A method that works for one person may confirm the delusion of another. Therefore, the master's compassion is a constant, subtle dance between yielding and firmness, between silence and the sudden, thunderous shout. The heart remains boundless, even when the hand moves quickly to break an attachment. Let us find ourselves now in a remote, quiet Zen temple, a place of stone and pine trees, where the air is always cool and the silence is thick enough to touch. In this temple lived a young monk named Ikon. Ikon was a model of devotion. He rose before the first light. His posture on the meditation cushion was impeccable, and his adherence to the daily schedule was flawless. His greatest pride and his greatest attachment was his zafu, his personal meditation cushion. Ikon had covered it with layers of fine cloth, treating it not just as an aid for practice, but as a sacred symbol of his own spiritual perfection. "I am the monk who sits perfectly," his mind often whispered. He was attached to the idea of stillness, not stillness itself. His composure was rigid, like a piece of ice, clear and beautiful, but cold and utterly resistant to change. He believed that he had transcended the turbulence of the world, but in truth, he had simply built a very sophisticated wall around his own heart, using the tools of practice itself. His master, a wise woman named Jinnen, watched him. Jinnen possessed the deepest, most unconditional kindness, but her eyes held the unflinching clarity of a mountain stream. She saw that Ekon's perfect posture and unwavering calm were not manifestations of freedom, but the bars of a golden cage. He was trapped by his own virtue. He was judging every other monk who struggled, who fidgeted, who failed to maintain his perfect standard. His compassion was limited to those who were already as disciplined as he was. Jinnen knew that to free Ekon, she could not use sweet words. Sweet words would only feed his spiritual pride. He needed an intervention so clear and so immediate that it would bypass his careful, intellectual defenses and strike directly at the heart of his attachment. One afternoon, as Ekon was settling onto his zafu for a long session of zazen, his body perfectly aligned, his mind settling into its self-satisfied calm, Master Jinnen entered the zendo. She carried a simple, worn leather boot, one she used for traversing the muddy paths of the mountain. She walked directly to Ekon. She did not speak. She did not bow. Ekon, startled by her unconventional entrance, opened one eye slightly, instantly ready to receive a compliment for his devotion, or perhaps an important teaching. Instead, Master Jinnen simply raised the boot, which was still dusty and mud-splattered from the outside path, and she slammed it down directly onto the center of Ekon's pristine zafu. The shock was total. Ekon's body jerked. His perfect posture was ruined. The physical offense was immediate. The mud on his pure cloth, the sudden violence of the sound shattering the silence. His immediate, raw reaction was not enlightenment. It was fury. "Master!" he burst out, leaping from the cushion, his voice shaking with anger. "What did you do? This is the zathu of my practice. It is sacred. You have ruined its purity. You have broken the stillness of the zendo." He pointed at the mud stain, a small, dark smear on the beautiful, pale cloth. The stain was the evidence of the world's imperfection violently imposed upon his personal perfection. Jinnen stood utterly still, her presence calm, her eyes reflecting the sudden fire in Ekon's. She waited until his rage had exhausted its first surge, until he was left trembling with pure, indignant attachment. Then her voice came, quiet, but cutting with the cold precision of truth. "Ekon," she said, "the zendo is silent. The mud is just mud. Where is your stillness now?" The words were a direct, sharp arrow aimed right at the center of his chest. She continued, "You cling to the stillness of the cushion and the purity of the cloth. You have confused a condition with a state of being. You believe your enlightenment is dependent on everything outside you being perfect and clean. But Ekon, true stillness is not the absence of mud and noise. True stillness is the mind that remains calm when the mud is slammed down upon the cushion. Your cushion is now marked by the world. It is now truly connected to the outside path. and your heart, which claims to be boundless, is violently contracted by a single, small stain. She pointed to the furious expression on his face. Look at this face, Ekin. This is the face of a man who is attached to an idea of compassion, not compassion itself. You are willing to be kind only when others match your perfection. That is not karuna. That is trade. You think you are free, but you are a slave to the cleanliness of your zafu. The mud of the world has exposed the deep dust in your heart. Jinin's words, though harsh, were not spoken with anger. They were spoken with fierce compassion. She was willing to endure Ekin's immediate resentment and misunderstanding for the sake of his ultimate freedom. She had shattered his precious illusion, and the breaking was painful, but necessary. In that moment of shock, Ekin suddenly saw himself clearly. He saw his pride. He saw his judgment. He saw the coldness that had sealed his heart off from the messy reality of his fellow monks and the village outside the walls. His attachment to the cushion was his attachment to a separate self, a self that was better, purer, and more perfect than all others. The mud stain was the truth of interbeing, made physical. He sank to his knees, not in supplication, but in a profound moment of realization. The furious fire in his chest died, replaced by a deep, liberating shame and a sudden, quiet peace. The illusion was gone. His heart, now stripped of its false perfection, was wide open to the truth. The world had poured in, and the world was now a part of his practice. Jinin simply turned to find rest. What is the cushion you are trying to keep clean tonight? Is it the cushion of your reputation, the cushion of your perfect routine, or the cushion of a past you wish to keep locked away, untouched by the mess of honest memory? We all carry a precious, clean cushion, the image of who we think we should be, and we spend enormous energy guarding it from the mud of reality. This guarding is where exhaustion truly sets in. It is not the work of the day that tires you. It is the unskillful effort of trying to maintain a pristine, separate self. True compassion, upaya, teaches you that the mud is not the enemy. The mud is simply the earth in another form, and you are made of that earth. When Master Jinin slammed the boot onto the cushion, she was not destroying Ikon's practice. She was finally opening it. She was injecting the messy, living reality of the mountain path right into the core of his spiritual striving. She was forcing his heart to embrace the whole, not just the part he deemed pure. Tonight, the deepest act of self-compassion you can perform is to allow the boot of reality to strike your perfect cushion. Allow the memory of a mistake to arise, not as a source of self-punishment, the second arrow, but as a simple, dusty fact of the path. Look at the stain without flinching. The stain is the evidence that you have been walking, that you have been trying, that you are participating in the vast, messy, and beautiful world. The compassion of upaya is the clarity that knows perfection is stillness, not absence of movement. In the quiet, ask yourself, where do I need the clarity of a harsh truth, delivered with the motive of love? Where is my spiritual practice, or even my simple effort to rest, being sabotaged by an attachment to things being just so? Often, we use kindness as a gentle blanket to avoid facing a difficult truth about our habits. We say, I'll be kind to myself and indulge in this distraction. When true kindness would be the skillful courage to set the distraction aside and face the quiet reality of the moment. That firmness, that non-negotiable insistence on presence is a form of fierce metta. It is the master's hand pulling the child back from the moment.
The cliff, not out of anger, but out of absolute clear-sighted love. The courage of skillful means also extends to the way we interact with others who are deeply trapped in their own delusion. Consider the challenge of a student who comes to the master asking for a teaching, but is only listening for confirmation of what they already believe. Their words are full of self-pity or grandiosity or the rigid logic of the intellect. A soft answer will only confirm their illusion. There is a story of Master Lin Ji, one of the most famous Zen figures known for his powerful, often shocking teaching methods. Lin Ji was not a man of gentle whispers. He was a master of the shout, the sudden, liberating katsu, and the powerful, direct blow with the stick. His methods were designed to be so unsettling, so out of context, that they instantly shattered the student's intellectual scaffolding. A monk once approached Lin Ji and asked the fundamental question, "What is the essence of the Buddha Dharma?" The monk had prepared for this moment for weeks. He was ready for a long philosophical lecture on emptiness, shunyata, or the nature of consciousness. He stood there, intellectually prepared to absorb the wisdom, but emotionally closed off by his own expectations. Lin Ji did not speak a single word. He simply struck the monk with his stick and turned his back. The monk, reeling from the sudden physical shock, stood frozen in pain, confusion, and utter indignation. He had been seeking profound spiritual truth, and he had received only violence. But in that instant, the silence that followed the stick was not empty. It was filled with the pure, shocking reality of the moment. All the monk's carefully constructed ideas about the Dharma, about Lin Ji, about his own spiritual perfection, all of it was instantly vaporized by the sheer, unmediated reality of the blow. The pain was real. The shock was real. The idea of the Dharma was not. The monk suddenly understood that the Dharma is not a concept to be grasped by the mind. It is the unadorned reality of the present moment. When the stick strikes, there is only the stick, the sound, the pain, and the immediate, non-conceptual awareness. The essence of the Buddha Dharma was not a verbal answer. It was the stick itself, acting as a complete, perfect teaching. This seemingly harsh act was the highest karuna. Lin Ji saw that the monk was deeply attached to the idea of enlightenment, a conceptual cage that prevented him from being enlightened. His compassion was so deep that he was willing to use a method that risked alienating the student, because the motive was to cut through the core illusion of separation. A polite answer would have taken years to unpack. The stick was instantaneous liberation. The ultimate lesson of skillful means is that the deepest expression of compassion is always truth. When we withhold truth, either from ourselves or from others, in the name of comfort or politeness, we are not being kind. We are being complicit in delusion. Tonight, as you lie here, allow yourself to practice the gentleness of metta alongside the clarity of upaya. Be gentle with your tired body. That is necessary metta. But be firm with the voice in your head that tries to start planning tomorrow or judging yesterday. That insistence on presence, on letting the day finish now, is your compassionate, skillful means. It is your inner master
delivering the sudden, sharp katsu to the mind's endless chatter. Say to the anxious thought, I see you. You are not needed now. The moment requires only rest. I will hold the space for you to dissolve. This clarity, this refusal to engage in the mind's habitual dramas, is the highest form of self-kindness. It is the wisdom that cuts through the noise, leaving only the profound silence of your own awareness. Allow the image of Master Jinin's unflinching gaze and Linji's shocking stick to remind you that true compassion is never lazy. It is engaged and clear. It knows when to whisper and when to shout. It knows when to soothe and when to shatter. And its only consistent motive is the liberation from suffering. As the quiet deepens, feel the courage in your own chest, the courage to let go of the stories, the courage to accept the mud, the courage to be present without pretense. This courage is your greatest act of love for yourself and for the world. You are strong enough to meet the truth. You are safe enough to rest in it. Let the final residues of the day's striving fall away, released by the clear-sighted, boundless compassion that now fills the space. Enter being and the path of compassion. Rest deeper now. Let the gentle force of the skillful means teaching, the wisdom that knows when to be firm and when to be soft, settle like clear water in your mind. From this settled, quiet space, we return to the most profound realization of the path. Enter being. We have seen that you are not separate. You are woven into the vast cosmic tapestry of life, dependent on the breath of the forest, the light of the distant sun, and the kindness of every stranger you meet. If this is truly understood, not just intellectually, but deep in the quiet wisdom of your body, then the path of compassion transforms entirely. It is no longer a burdensome duty, a moral striving to be a good person. It becomes a spontaneous, inevitable necessity, like breathing. When a pain flares up in your hand, the rest of your body does not pause to debate whether the hand is worthy of care. The whole system immediately rushes blood, healing, and attention to that point. The hand's pain is the body's pain. This is the simple, profound logic of karuna flowing from interbeing. Your suffering is the world's suffering. Your healing is the world's healing. This realization leads naturally to the most powerful commitment in the entire Buddhist tradition, the Bodhisattva vow. This vow is not reserved for advanced practitioners on a distant mountain. It is the natural expression of any heart that has seen the truth of interbeing. The Bodhisattva is simply one who has glimpsed the door of liberation, the ultimate, final peace, but refuses to step through it until every other single being can come too. The Bodhisattva says, I will not rest fully while one single heart still aches. This is not a vow of martyrdom. It is a vow of self-expansion. It recognizes that true, ultimate peace is not possible for an isolated self. To be fully liberated, the whole must be liberated, because the I is not separate from the whole. To embody this vow, we look back to the many lives of the historical Buddha before his final enlightenment, known as the Jataka tales. These are the stories that illustrate the perfections of character he cultivated across countless lifetimes, and they are filled with acts of boundless, non-discriminating compassion. Let us turn our minds to the story of the noble deer, Nigrotamika Jataka. This story is an unforgettable lesson in leadership, sacrifice, and the transformation of effort into pure, selfless love. Once, long ago, the Buddha was born as the leader of a large, beautiful herd of deer. He was magnificent, with antlers like polished silver and a gentle, profound wisdom in his eyes.
He was known as the Negrota deer, the leader of the banyan grove. In the same forest lived a rival herd, led by a powerful stag named Bada. The king of that land, named Brahmadatta, loved to hunt deer, and he loved the sheer, violent sport of it. The deer were terrified, their lives marked by constant fear and unpredictable, cruel death. The wise Negrota deer, seeing the suffering and chaos this hunting brought, came up with a plan to bring order to the chaos, not to avoid death, but to manage the fear. He led his herd and Bada's rival herd into the king's royal park, a place where, once enclosed, the deer could be caught easily, but at least the panic would be controlled. He then went to the king, not in fear, but with the quiet dignity of a clear-sighted leader. "Great king," the Negrota deer spoke, his voice calm and resonant. "We know you enjoy the hunt, and we know that death is inevitable for all beings. But your method of hunting causes profound suffering and panic, wounding many deer who then die slowly. To honor your need, and to minimize the pain of the collective, we offer this solution. We will send one deer, chosen by lot, to the butcher's block each day. This way, one life is given, and the rest of the herd can graze and live without the paralyzing fear that prevents their existence." The king, astounded by the deer's wisdom and selflessness, agreed. This was a form of skillful means, a compromise with the reality of the situation, driven purely by the motive to minimize collective anxiety. For a time, the plan worked. Every day, the herds cast lots, and the chosen deer went calmly to its fate, sacrificing itself for the peace of the whole. Then, one morning, the lot fell upon a pregnant doe from the rival herd led by Bada. The doe approached Bada, tears streaming from her eyes, and begged, "My lord, the lot has fallen to me, but I carry a child who has not yet lived its life. If I go today, 2 lives are lost. Grant me a few days' reprieve to give birth, and then I will gladly go." Bada, the proud, powerful leader, was consumed by his own self-preservation. He was the epitome of the isolated self, strong but utterly lacking in compassion. He shouted, "The lot has fallen. The rule is the rule. Your individual suffering cannot change the law of the herd. Go to the block." He feared that if he replaced her, he might be chosen himself, or risk disrupting the comfortable rhythm. The doe, weeping and terrified, carried her burden of grief and impending doom toward the path of the executioner. But the Negrota deer, the bodhisattva in that lifetime, was watching. His heart was the heart of Karuna. It could not bear the sight of this extra suffering, this doubling of pain for the unborn life. He knew what he had to do. He made a vow in that moment, not with grand words, but with a simple, immediate act of self-transference. He walked to the doe, spoke gently to her, and sent her back to the safety of the herd. Then the Negrota deer walked the path himself. He walked directly to the executioner's block and lay down, offering his own beautiful, noble body in place of the fearful doe and her unborn child. When the executioner, and then the king, saw the majestic leader lying there, ready to die for a doe that was not even of his own herd, they were utterly paralyzed. They had expected a sacrifice, but not one made with such complete, non-discriminating love. The king, stunned, asked, "Why? You are the wisest of the deer, the most noble. Why do you lie here? You were not chosen." The Negrota deer lifted his head, his eyes clear and calm. "Great king, the law of the lot is right, but the rule that kills an innocent unborn life is a stain on the Dharma. The rival leader would not take her place. I could not bear the sight of that compounded grief. I trade one life that is ready for another life that is yet to begin. I do this so that the law may stand, but the spirit of compassion may prevail. My life is offered for the peace of the whole community." The sheer, unconditional nature of this sacrifice, the willingness to die for a stranger and even more for a creature from a rival group,
pierced the king's heart. It broke through the king's own attachment to violence, his own illusion of separation from the natural world. The king Brahmadatta dropped his sword. He could not lift it against such nobility. "Rise, noble deer," the king commanded, his voice shaking with a sudden, profound realization. "If your heart is so much grander than mine, how can I continue this violence? I grant life to your herd." The Negrota deer thanked him, but then added one more layer of compassion. "Sire, there are still the deer of the Bada herd. They are still subject to the lot." The king, now utterly transformed by the power of metta, declared, "Then I grant life to the Bada herd too." The deer pressed further. "And the other creatures of the forest, the birds, the small beasts, the others outside the park, they still fear your sport." The king's liberation was complete. He stood up and made a final, powerful vow. "From this day forward, I grant life and safety to all four-footed creatures, all feathered creatures, all aquatic creatures, and all beings in my kingdom." The Negrota deer did not ask for his life. He asked for the lives of the collective. His single act of ultimate karuna was the single point of clarity that transformed the consciousness of the entire kingdom. He saw his effort as a contribution to the whole, and because he acted from the depth of interbeing, his small sacrifice created vast, ripple-like peace. This ancient story embodies the essence of the path of compassion. It teaches us that compassion is the transformation of effort into love. Our ordinary effort, the striving, the rushing, the trying, is often fueled by fear. I must achieve this so I can be safe. I must control this so I can be happy. That effort is heavy and it burns us out. The effort of the bodhisattva, the effort born of the Negrota deer's heart, is simply the outflow of awareness. It is not driven by the fear of loss, but by the profound joy of connection. The deer did not sacrifice his life for praise, or for a reward, or even for a fixed result. He acted because the pain of the whole was felt in his own heart, and the only possible, non-negotiable response was to move toward the deepest relief of that pain. As you lie here, your body heavy and tired, allow this principle of bodhisattva effort to guide your rest. Your tiredness is the echo of the day's striving. Tonight, let the tiredness be met with the deep karuna of the Negrota deer. Do not judge your exhaustion. Do not treat it as a personal failure. See it as the shared human weight of participating in the world. Your act of resting now is a profound act of compassion for the world. You are replenishing the vessel so that tomorrow's efforts may flow from love, not from fear. You are taking your part in the collective peace. You are not an island resting alone. You are a vital strand in the web, settling into stillness so that the whole web may become more stable. Feel the profound lightness of releasing the need for a fixed result. The Negrota deer's action was complete in the moment he offered his life. The result, the king's conversion, was an unexpected, beautiful gift of karma, but not the goal. Your action of resting is complete in this moment. The goal is not to force yourself to sleep. The goal is to rest in the effortless quality of being present with your own body and breath. This quiet presence is the most powerful love you can offer. Every inhalation, I receive the life that sustains the whole. Every exhalation, I offer my ease to the peace of the world. Allow the vow to resonate in your quiet heart. I commit to seeing every being,
including this tired human being I call myself, as a sacred part of the path. There is no need to rush. There is no need to strive. Your effort is now transformed into a quiet, unwavering love that flows seamlessly from the wisdom of interbeing. Rest in the safety and the boundless strength of that commitment. The patience of forbearance, ksanti, compassion under pressure. Rest in the expansive truth of the bodhisattva vow, the heart's commitment to the whole. Now we turn to the strength required to maintain that vow when the world presses against it. We explore the perfection of forbearance, or ksanti. Forbearance is often misunderstood as merely passive endurance, as simply putting up with difficulty. But in the ancient wisdom, ksanti is one of the 10 perfections, paramitas, required for awakening. It is not passive. It is an active, courageous wisdom that keeps the heart open and steady when the immediate impulse is to contract, retaliate, or close off entirely. It is the armor of true compassion, ensuring that our metta remains boundless even when faced with anger, cruelty, or betrayal. Ksanti is the discipline of creating space between the stimulus and the response. When hurt comes, the mind's natural reaction is instant, fiery defense. Forbearance is the ability to inhale, to pause, and to remember the wider truth of karma and interbeing before reacting. It is the profound wisdom that knows the anger you receive is not truly about you. It is the suffering of another being violently expressed. The ultimate expression of this perfection comes directly from the story of the Buddha's own trials in a previous life, the story of the patient ascetic, Kantivada Jataka. This tale is perhaps the most challenging and potent teaching on compassion under the most severe duress. Once, long ago, the Buddha was born as a dedicated, peaceful ascetic named Kantivada, literally, the preacher of patience. He lived in solitude in a remote, quiet grove, practicing deep meditation and teaching the Dharma to those who sought him out. His life was defined by the profound peace that comes from absolute freedom from ill will. One day, the king of that realm, a ruler named Kalabu, who was tyrannical and consumed by jealousy and arrogance, entered the grove with his retinue for a hunting expedition. Tired from the chase, the king decided to rest, falling into a deep, drunken sleep. His many concubines and attendants, restless and bored, wandered away from the sleeping king and soon came upon the grove where Kantivada was sitting in deep meditation. They were immediately captivated by the ascetic's aura of quiet, radiant peace. He looked like no man they had ever seen, his face serene, his body utterly still, his presence profound. They sat around him, listening intently as he taught the Dharma, speaking about the power of patience and the liberation found in forgiveness. When the king finally woke, he was immediately filled with wrath. "Where are my women? Who dares to take their attention from me?" His jealousy was a consuming fire, and when he learned they were sitting at the feet of a holy man, his rage knew no bounds. He was furious that a mere beggar had commandeered the attention that he felt belonged only to the king. He stormed into the grove, his face contorted with drunken fury. He demanded, "Who are you? What is your doctrine? Do you teach revolution? Do you teach disobedience?" Kantivada, the patient ascetic, opened his eyes slowly, looking upon the terrifying, wrathful king with a gaze of complete, calm serenity. He felt no fear, only a profound recognition of the king's immense suffering. He saw that the king was not acting from malice, but from the unbearable pain of his own ego and insecurity. Great king, the ascetic replied, his voice gentle and steady. I teach only one doctrine. I am Kantivada, the preacher of patience. The king, whose nature was utterly devoid of patience, found this answer to be a direct, unforgivable insult. Patience. You dare preach patience to me, the master of all beings? The king called his executioner and commanded the man to bring a razor-sharp sword. He began to question the ascetic, his voice dripping with venom. Tell me, ascetic, where does this patience reside? Is it in your mind? Is it in your body? Kantivada calmly replied, King, my patience is not held in the body. The body is impermanent. My patience resides in my heart and in my wisdom. It is my constant state of mind, utterly free from resentment and ill will. The king, in a frenzy of rage, commanded his guards to seize the ascetic. He then ordered the executioner to take the sword and, in a horrifying test of the ascetic's claim, to cut off the ascetic's hands and feet. The executioner, horrified but bound by the king's command, did as he was told. Imagine the absolute, searing pain, the fear, the shock, the natural human response to such a barbaric, cruel act. The ultimate, final challenge to the vow of non-retaliation. Yet, as his limbs were severed, Kantivada did not flinch. He did not cry out in vengeance. He did not allow a single thought of hatred, regret, or revenge to arise in his heart. When the king looked at the mutilated ascetic, whose face remained utterly peaceful, he could not believe it. He asked again, filled with drunken, bewildered rage, "Where is your patience now? Does your heart still hold this patience?" The ascetic, bleeding profusely, his body shattered, looked at the king with eyes full of pure, unsullied karuna. "King," he whispered, his voice weak but clear, "the patience is here. My patience is so complete that I pray only one thing for you, the one who has maimed me. May your life be long, and may you suffer no misfortune on account of this action. For you, King, are the truly injured one. Your action has caused you the greatest wound." This was the ultimate expression of Kasanti. The ascetic's patience was not merely endurance of physical pain. It was the active, conscious refusal to create new karma by harboring hatred. It was the wisdom that saw the king's cruelty as a sickness, a profound form of suffering, and responded not with reciprocal violence, but with the medicine of pure love. The ascetic knew that the king was already suffering immensely from his own delusion, and a curse or a hateful thought would only multiply that suffering, for the king and for the world. The moment the ascetic spoke that profound prayer of forgiveness, the king was instantly struck with terror, shame, and a sudden, wrenching realization of his own monstrous deed. He fell to the ground, consumed by remorse. The tale teaches us that patience is the greatest spiritual superpower. It is the power to stand utterly firm, non-negotiably rooted in love, when everything in the world tries to pull you into the chaos of hatred. This deep wisdom must be brought into the gentle privacy of your own night. Tonight, you are not being asked to face a tyrannical king. You are being asked to face the small, persistent tyrannies of your own mind and your daily life. What is the King Kalabu in your own heart? Is it the memory of a past slight, an unjust word, or a betrayal that still causes you to contract and seek revenge? Is it the tyrannical voice of self-judgment that refuses to forgive your own small errors. These inner tyrants inflict pain, and the mind's first impulse is to fight back, to debate, to seek closure, or to retaliate with worry and rumination. This is the act of firing the second arrow. Ksanti is your tool of self-liberation here. It is the simple, non-reactive pause. When the memory of the slight arises, do not debate it. Do not analyze it. Do not allow your heart to burn with the fire of should have been. Instead, say silently, I see the suffering that caused that action. I will not add to the suffering of that moment by holding on to resentment now. When the inner voice is cruel toward yourself, do not fight the voice. That only gives it power. Instead, look at the voice with the calm, steady gaze of the patient ascetic. Say, this voice is my own suffering speaking. I will not harm myself further by believing its cruelty. This is not easy work. This is the discipline of the open heart. It is the discipline that allows the inevitable pains of life to pass through the system without leaving the toxic residue of resentment and hatred. This residue is what keeps us awake, tense, and perpetually fearful. Allow the image of the patient ascetic, utterly still amidst the chaos, to be your guide to rest. His peace was not dependent on his external conditions. It was an internal state of being that could not be broken by any external force. His body could be destroyed, but his peace was invincible. Your body is lying here now, safe and warm. Your mind is the only place where the tyranny can continue. Choose to disarm the inner tyrant with the power of unconditional forgiveness. The simple, gentle refusal to participate in the cycle of hatred. Take a deep breath and feel the profound strength that comes from letting go of the need for revenge or justice. Release the need to prove you were right. Release the need to keep the score. You are trading the heavy, burning weight of resentment for the profound lightness of peace. This is the great victory of forbearance. It is the highest act of compassion, for it frees both the giver and the receiver from the endless cycle of pain. Rest now, protected by the invincible armor of your own steady, patient heart. Part 9. The Joy of Generosity. Dana. Compassion in action. Allow the unwavering firmness of Ksanti, the patience that refuses resentment, to gently dissolve into the deep quiet of your rest. We move now to the most visible, tangible expression of the compassionate heart, Dana, or generosity. In the path of the Bodhisattva, the perfections, or paramitas, are not abstract virtues. They are the essential practices that liberate the heart from its deepest attachments. If wisdom cuts through delusion and patience guards against anger, then generosity cuts directly through the root of all suffering, craving, and clinging. Dana is far more than a simple charitable donation. It is a spiritual act of non-possessive giving. It is the spontaneous overflow of a heart that has truly understood interbeing, the wisdom that knows there is no separate owner, no separate possession, and ultimately, no separate receiver. Generosity, therefore, is not the act of giving something away. It is the joy of letting go and realizing that the happiness of others is inextricably bound up with your own. The very movement of giving releases the heart from the heavy weight of scarcity and fear, the twin shadows that keep us awake at night. The fear of scarcity whispers, "Hold on tight, there is not enough. If you give, you will lose, and you will suffer." Dana is the courageous wisdom that whispers back, "Let go, The universe is a flow, not a fixed resource. The well replenishes itself when you draw from it freely. This shift from fear-based clinging to flow-based trust is what makes Dana a profound path to inner peace and ultimate rest. Let us find ourselves in the ancient city of Rajagaha on a night when the air was alive with light and devotion. The scene is set during a great festival of lights, a time when the entire city gathers to honor the Buddha and the Dharma by lighting thousands of lamps. On this particular night, kings, merchants, and wealthy patrons poured forth their enormous wealth. They brought carts full of the finest, most fragrant oil and the largest, most ornate lamps. They competed with each other, trying to outshine their rivals, creating a dazzling spectacle of light and lavish offering. The motivation for many was not pure metta, but the desire for recognition, merit, and a better rebirth, a subtle form of spiritual transaction. Amidst this glittering display of abundance and effort, there lived an old woman named Nanda. She was one of the poorest people in the city, a quiet, simple woman who earned a living by the humble, grinding work of selling oil. Her entire world was contained within the few meager possessions she owned. Nanda watched the magnificent procession. She saw the vast, brilliant river of light and felt the pull of devotion in her own heart. I too wish to make an offering, she thought. I too wish to contribute to the light of the Dharma that illuminates the world. She counted her coins. She had only one small coin left. It was barely enough to buy her next meal, and certainly not enough to buy the extravagant lamp and the gallons of oil offered by the rich. Her single coin was her entire wealth, her entire security. The moment of decision was a profound spiritual test. Her mind, like any human mind, surely whispered the familiar warning. Keep the coin. You need it. If you spend it on this lamp, you will be hungry tomorrow. You will suffer. But Nanda's heart, cleansed by her quiet, simple life of labor and humility, held a clarity that wealth often obscures. She understood the true meaning of Dana. She knew that the value of the gift is measured by the generosity of the heart that offers it, not by the market price of the commodity. She took her single coin to the oil vendor. The vendor, seeing her poverty, initially hesitated, but Nanda was firm in her request. She bought the smallest possible amount of oil, enough to fill only a small, ordinary clay lamp, the kind that was easily overlooked. She carefully lit the wick, holding the little lamp with profound reverence. This lamp, fueled by the last of her possessions, represented her entire life, her complete trust in the universe, and her pure, boundless wish for all beings. She brought the humble, tiny light to the offering grounds and placed it near the magnificent, multi-wicked lamps of the wealthy. Her lamp was utterly dwarfed. It was almost invisible in the overwhelming blaze of the thousands of other lights. As she placed her single lamp, Nanda made a powerful, silent vow, an expression of the purest metta. Through this small, humble offering, may the light of the Dharma shine upon all beings, dispelling the darkness of ignorance. May this small light be a sign of my complete, unreserved giving. I offer it without attachment, without expectation, wishing only for the happiness of the world. She did not wait for recognition. She simply bowed and melted back into the shadows of the crowd, her heart utterly lightened and free. She had nothing left to lose, because she had given her all, and in doing so, she had gained everything. The festival raged on through the night, a brilliant spectacle of light against the deep darkness. But as the first cool air of dawn approached, a fierce, unexpected wind swept through the city. It was a powerful, gusting current of air that rattled the great buildings and tore through the offering grounds. The wind violently extinguished lamp after lamp. The oil in the massive, ornate bowls splashed out. The fragile flames of the thousands of rich offerings were blown out in quick succession. The fire of the proud, self-conscious gifts could not withstand the force of nature, the relentless hand of impermanence. Soon, all the thousands of lights, the symbols of wealth and pride, were dark. All except for one. Nanda's tiny, humble clay lamp, with its small, steady flame, fueled by the last of her meager oil, continued to burn, unwavering. It stood alone in the quiet dawn, a small beacon of light, utterly untouched by the furious gale. The great attendant of the Buddha, the powerful Madhgalyayana, one of the foremost disciples known for his supernatural powers, saw this extraordinary sight. He saw the single, frail lamp that refused to be extinguished. Madhgalyayana, wishing to tidy the grounds and prepare for the morning's teachings, decided to blow out the last remaining lamp. He was a master of psychic power, capable of manipulating immense forces. He gathered his breath and blew with the full concentrated force of his spiritual power. The flame of Nanda's lamp merely flickered for a moment, and then continued to burn, steady and bright. Madhgalyayana tried again, using an even greater force of wind, a wind so strong it could uproot trees. But the little flame remained unextinguished, burning with an impossible, gentle persistence. Confused, Madhgalyayana stepped back. The Buddha, who had witnessed the entire scene with his boundless wisdom, spoke gently to his astonished disciple. Madhgalyayana, the Buddha said, his voice quiet but resonant, "Do you see the power of this light? You cannot extinguish this lamp. You cannot extinguish it with your breath, nor with the force of 10,000 hurricanes. You cannot extinguish it with all the magic and power in the world." "Why, Lord?" Madhgalyayana asked, humbled by the impossibility of the sight. "Because, Madhgalyayana," the Buddha explained, "this lamp is not fueled by ordinary oil. It is fueled by the boundless, unreserved, pure intention of the heart. It was offered by a woman who had nothing, but whose single offering contained her entire self and her complete faith in the happiness of all beings. It was given without a trace of attachment, without any expectation of reward. The light of dana, which springs from pure metta, cannot be extinguished by the winds of doubt or the storms of impermanence. It is the light of a realized heart, and that is a light that burns eternally." This profound story is the ultimate teaching on generosity as compassion in action. It shows us that the most powerful gifts are not the ones that cost the most wealth, but the ones that cost the most attachment. Nanda's gift was her entire security, and by giving it completely, she transcended the fear of scarcity and secured a peace more valuable than any earthly treasure. This wisdom of dana holds the key to the deep rest you seek tonight. We often think of generosity only in terms of giving physical things. But the most profound, liberating generosity we can practice is the giving of non-physical things, the letting go of the internal possessions that truly bind us. 1. The generosity of forgiveness. What grudge are you hoarding tonight? What memory are you clinging to, refusing to let go, using it as fuel for your self-pity or resentment? Holding a grudge is like refusing to give away a piece of burning coal. The only person it truly harms is the one who holds it. The ultimate act of dana is to give away your right to resentment. To forgive a person, or to forgive yourself, is to perform an act of deep spiritual generosity that instantly replenishes your inner peace. Release the attachment to the narrative of the past. Give the gift of forgiveness to the person who wronged you, or to the tired, imperfect self who made a mistake. 2. The generosity of attention, mindfulness. Where is your mind hoarding its energy tonight? Is it spending its last reserves worrying about things you cannot control tomorrow? This is a form of spiritual miserliness, refusing to give your precious presence to the moment you are actually living. The most essential gift you can give your body tonight is the generosity of your full, non-judgmental attention. Give your attention fully to the simple rhythm of your breath. Give your attention fully to the feeling of the sheet against your skin. This is the dana of presence. By giving your full awareness to the moment, you stop the feverish, grasping energy of the mind, and you allow the pure light of the present moment to burn clearly, like Nanda's single lamp. 3. The generosity of trust and release. We often cling tightly to the outcomes of our day, our relationships, and our plans. We refuse to let them go into the deep night, fearful that if we stop watching them, they will fall apart. This clinging is a lack of trust in karma and interbeing. The compassionate act of dana is to generously release your sense of control. Give your children, your friends, your colleagues, and your own future over to the natural flow of existence. Trust that you have done what you could and that the universe is not random, but a vast, interconnected web where every action creates a precise effect. The deep rest that follows this release is the profound joy of non-possessive giving. As you lie here, allow the image of Nanda's small, unextinguishable lamp to be your sanctuary. It reminds you that your capacity for contribution is not limited by what you own, but by the purity of your intention. You are making a great offering tonight. Your offering is the act of surrender. You are giving away your daily burdens, your inner criticism, and your fear of the future. You are giving the gift of a completely unreserved rest to the vessel of your own body, so that the light of your metta can shine purely tomorrow. Take a final, deep breath. As you exhale, imagine you are releasing everything you are clinging to, like opening your hand to let a handful of sand fall back to the earth. This release is your dana. This lightness is your peace. Rest now in the knowledge that your simple act of letting go is an act of boundless, unreserved love for the whole world. The small, quiet practices, compassion in the mundane. You are resting now, having understood the power of generosity, dana, the courage of patience, ksanti, and the boundless love of metta. You realize that these virtues are not distant ideals to be achieved on a mountaintop, but deep, internal transformations of the heart. Now, we must bring this boundless wisdom down from the clouds and into the simplest, most ordinary moments of our life. We turn our attention to the small, quiet practices, the subtle, unseen acts of compassion that happen in the mundane rhythm of the day. The grand acts of the bodhisattva, saving a whole herd of deer, enduring physical mutilation, are profound, but they are rare. True spiritual liberation is often found in the utter ordinariness of existence. It is found in the way you step on the earth, the way you listen to a colleague, the way you wash a bowl, or the way you simply allow yourself to rest tonight. For the ancient masters, the highest expression of the Dharma was not found in philosophical debate, but in the effortless, non-discriminating quality of their daily life. They knew that if you cannot find compassion in the act of simply making a cup of tea,
you will never truly find it in the grand gesture of saving the world. Let us find ourselves in the silence of the Zen kitchen, the heart of every monastery. In a remote temple, surrounded by forests of quiet pine, lived a revered master known simply as Guang, whose name meant radiance. He was famous not for his sermons or his enlightenment experiences, but for the profound, luminous quality of his actions. He was the head cook of the monastery, a simple role that required constant, repetitive, and often unnoticed labor. Day after day, year after year, Master Guang rose before dawn. His work was the same: lighting the fire, cutting the vegetables, grinding the grains, washing the endless stream of bowls, and sweeping the stone floor of the kitchen. There was no glamour here, no great spiritual drama, only the humble, unwavering reality of service. The younger monks striving in their meditation halls often pitied Guang. Surely, they thought, a master of his caliber should be teaching the Dharma, not peeling potatoes. They sought profound answers in their books, while Guang found his profound answer in the rhythmic sound of the chopping knife. But one curious, dedicated young monk named Ren began to observe Guang closely. Ren was an intelligent student, quick to grasp concepts like emptiness and interbeing, but he struggled with anxiety. He felt that his spiritual life was separate from his physical life. He found peace on the cushion, but impatience and irritation when he had to engage in the day's chores. Ren watched Guang preparing the simple daily rice. Guang did not rush. His movements were slow, precise, and utterly absorbed. When he sorted the grains, his attention was completely on the rice in his hands, the small variations in texture, the subtle color of the husk. When he washed the rice, the sound of the water against the bowl was a small, perfect melody. Ren noticed that when Guang cut the vegetables, the knife was not just a tool for division. It seemed to be an extension of his own awareness. There was no tension in his shoulder, no hurried anxiety in his rhythm. Each slice was a moment of complete attention, and therefore, a small act of reverence. One morning, Ren finally approached Guang, who was patiently scrubbing the sticky residue from a massive wooden serving bowl. "Master Guang," Ren began, bowing deeply, "I struggle with the daily tasks. When I sit in meditation, I feel profound peace and clarity. But when I come to the kitchen to wash the bowls, my peace vanishes. I feel impatience, irritation, and the desperate wish to be back on the cushion. How do I reconcile the spiritual life with the tedious, mundane reality of life? How do I find compassion in the washing of a dirty bowl?" Master Guang paused his work. He held the bowl, still half covered in sticky residue, and looked at Ren, his eyes radiating a quiet, deep light. He did not quote a sutra or give a complex lecture on the mind. He simply held up the bowl. "Ren," he said, his voice soft, like the low hum of the stove. "When you are on the cushion, where is the bowl?" Ren blinked, confused. "It is nowhere, master. My mind is focused on the breath." "And when you are washing the bowl," Guang continued, "where is the cushion?" "The cushion is in the meditation hall, master. My mind is focused on how quickly I can return to it." Guang smiled gently, a smile that crinkled the corners of his eyes. "That, Ren, is your suffering. You have divided the universe in two, the sacred cushion and the profane bowl. You believe peace is a possession that can be found in one place and lost in another. But the Dharma, my son, is the wisdom that knows there is only one place, and that place is here." He dipped the cloth into the clean water and continued his rhythmic scrubbing, demonstrating his teaching with his movement. "To find compassion in the dirty bowl," Guang explained, "is to understand interbeing completely. This bowl is not separate from you. You did not eat from it today, but the man next to you did. The grain came from the earth. The water came from the sky.
The dirt on the bowl is the residue of life, the evidence of sustenance, the proof that the community was fed. When you wash this bowl with impatience, you are wishing
To be done with life itself. You are rejecting the very moment that sustains you. You are saying, I do not love this moment. I do not love this chore. I do not love this place. But when you wash the bowl with complete attention, with the same reverence you give the breath, you are performing an act of pure metta. You are wishing well to the person who will eat from it tomorrow. You are honoring the grain that fed them. You are offering respect to the water that cleanses it. You are accepting the entirety of the rhythm, the eating, the soiling, the cleansing, the resting. All of it is the Dharma. All of it is sacred. The compassion is in the water, Ren, not in the philosophy. The compassion is in the steady, patient movement of the cloth on the porcelain. That steady, patient movement is the embodiment of Kasanti, patience, under the pressure of the mundane. The clean bowl is the gift of Dana, generosity to the future. Guang finished scrubbing the bowl. He held it up. It was smooth, clean, and perfectly luminous in the soft morning light filtering through the kitchen window. See, Guang said, his voice a quiet whisper, the clean bowl is not an achievement. It is a natural result of loving presence. The dirt did not need to be forced off. It simply relinquished its grip when met with patient, steady attention. Your anxiety, Ren, is just the dirt on your own mind. It is a residue of past striving. Do not fight it. Do not try to rush back to the cushion. Simply bring your full, loving attention to the dirt itself. When you are fully present with your breath, it is clean. When you are fully present with the bowl, it is clean. The spiritual life is nothing more than the daily work of not being elsewhere. This story of the Zen kitchen is the master key to finding rest and compassion in your own busy life. The mundane is not an obstacle to your peace. It is the only place where peace can truly be found. We are so conditioned to seek the spectacular that we overlook the sublime. We wait for the moment of grand realization while life offers us thousands of quiet moments of potential awakening in every hour. Think now about your own life, about the small, repetitive tasks that fill your day, the making of coffee, the walking from room to room, the brushing of teeth, the act of lying down to sleep. Where do you rush? Where do you carry the burden of the elsewhere mind? When you walk, do you walk only to arrive, your mind already at the destination? If so, you miss the profound teaching of the gentle step. The gentle step is a simple, profound practice of karuna toward the earth itself. The great Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh taught us that every step should be taken as a gift to the earth, as if you are kissing the ground with your foot. This is not just poetic language. It is the literal practice of interbeing. When you walk mindfully, deliberately slowing down, you notice the simple exchange. The earth supports you completely, and your presence honors the earth in return. A hurried step is a violent step. It is a movement driven by inner fear and grasping. A slow, gentle step, felt fully in the sole of the foot, is an act of trust and reverence. It is a small, quiet act of compassion that affirms, I have nowhere else to be. The destination is right here, beneath my foot. As you lie in bed, your body heavy, you can practice the gentle step with your breath. Your breath is the one constant in your life, the continuous thread of existence, linking you to the farthest star and the deepest ocean. Do not try to force the breath to be slow or deep. That would be another form of striving, another act of impatience. Instead, give the breath the generosity of your full attention. Simply follow the air as it enters your nostrils, following its gentle descent, and follow it as it rises and leaves your body. The breath is your most humble, most available dirty bowl. It is utterly ordinary, completely reliable, and always present. When you give your entire non-judgmental attention to the breath for 5 full cycles, you are performing an act of pure, localized metta. You are giving kindness to the only thing that is truly in the present moment. This is the profound teaching of simplicity. Simplicity is not the absence of things. It is the presence with what is. In the ancient Zen tradition, the greatest masters were often characterized by their deep, quiet engagement with the simple things. There was Master Ikkyu, who, though a wild eccentric, taught the profound truth that everything is the Buddha Dharma. He taught that if you try to hold enlightenment aloof from the ordinary world, if you treat the monastery as sacred and the marketplace as profane, you will forever live in delusion. His compassion was to force his students to see the holy in the vulgar, the sacred in the smell of the street, the truth in the laughter and the tears of ordinary human life. He shattered the monk's illusion of purity by demonstrating that the pure heart includes the whole messy reality of existence. There was Layman Pang, a wealthy man who famously gave away all his possessions and traveled with his family. He taught that there is nothing special about enlightenment. His most famous saying illustrates the profound ordinariness of the awakened life. My daily affairs are quite ordinary, but I am not attached to them. I simply carry water, chop wood, and prepare my meals. What are these matters about? I reply, the Buddha's body is a vastness of form. Layman Pang's compassion was his ability to model effortless being. He didn't use carrying water to achieve enlightenment. He carried water as enlightenment. The pure state of being was already infused into the mundane act. When the task is done with complete presence, the task itself is the spiritual practice. Tonight, as you lie here, what simple mundane act can you perform with complete, non-attached presence? Perhaps it is the simple act of turning your pillow. Feel the texture of the fabric, the cool temperature against your cheek. Notice the smell of the cloth, the subtle movement of your neck. This small act is an island of pure presence, a small, perfect zendo in the middle of your busy night. Perhaps it is the simple act of releasing the weight of your eyelids. Do not squeeze them shut in effort. Simply allow the small, tiny muscles to surrender their tension, welcoming the darkness without demanding sleep. This soft surrender is a profound act of self-compassion, a small, gentle offering of dana to your tired eyes. The compassion of the mundane is the practice of non-striving. In the kitchen, Master Guang never strove to be a perfect cook. He simply cooked with perfect attention. On the path, the Bodhisattva never strives to be compassionate. They simply act from the awareness of interbeing. When you strive to sleep, you become tense, anxious, and you push sleep further away. Your inner dialogue becomes urgent. I must sleep now. I must rest. This is important. This striving is the second arrow, fired at the simple, natural process of rest. The compassion of the mundane asks you to set down that striving. It asks you to simply be the condition for rest. You have already completed the work. You have set down your burdens. You have softened your body. You have turned off the light. The final, small, quiet practice is to trust the process itself. Rest is not something you achieve. It is what happens when you cease to block the natural flow of your body's wisdom. Release the need to check the clock in your mind. Release the fear that tomorrow will be difficult if you do not sleep. That is the elsewhere mind, pulling you away from the profound, simple peace of the present moment. The true compass of your spiritual journey is not measured by the depth of your philosophical understanding, but by the gentleness of your touch, on a bowl, on a step, on the blanket, and most importantly, on your own human heart. Let the final teaching be this: your attention is your greatest expression of love. When you give your full, gentle, unreserved attention to this single, precious moment of rest, you are embodying the highest form of compassion. You are fully present for yourself, and in that moment of self-acceptance, you are fully present for the entire world. Sink into the simplicity now. There's only the quiet. There's only the breath. There's only the earth supporting you. This is the great work. This is the ultimate compassion. Rest now, utterly, fully, simply here. The Bodhisattva vow and the release. Rest now in the deep silence, allowing the gentle practices of the mundane to settle your heart. You have walked through the field of compassion, from its fierce wisdom, upaya, to its quiet, everyday reverence, mindfulness. You have seen that true kindness is not an emotion, but the natural, steady outflow of a realized life, a life that understands the profound truth of interbeing. As we approach the end of this journey, we return to the very foundation of this path of compassion, and in doing so, we find the deepest possible ground for rest. We conclude with the Bodhisattva vow, not as a distant spiritual commitment, but as the final absolute act of trust and surrender that allows you to fully let go of the burden of the separate self. The Bodhisattva vow is the heart's ultimate declaration. Sentient beings are numberless. I vow to save them all. To the striving mind, this sounds impossible, a recipe for immediate failure and burnout. How can one finite human being, who struggles with exhaustion and anxiety, vow to save all beings? But the vow is not a declaration of achievement. It is a declaration of intent. It is the mind's final poetic acceptance of the truth of anatta, non-self. If you are not separate, then your peace is not separate. And if your peace is not separate, the only true way to achieve liberation is to commit to the liberation of the whole. The Bodhisattva understands that by working on the liberation of others, they are simultaneously working on the liberation of the self, because the two are one single field. The power of the vow is not in its scale, but in its purity. It shifts your motivation from the small, fearful, I need to be safe, to the vast, unconditional, may all beings be safe. This subtle shift in motivation transforms all action, turning simple effort into sacred service. Let us return to the deepest quiet of a monastery, where the vow is not recited, but lived. There is a timeless teaching that speaks of the Bodhisattva's constant practice of dedication. After every act of virtue, after every period of deep meditation, every act of simple kindness, every generous donation, the Bodhisattva dedicates the merit, the good energy generated by that action, to the benefit of all beings. They do not claim the merit for themselves. They do not hoard it for a personal reward or a better rebirth. They freely and immediately release it back into the cosmic stream. The practice is, I dedicate this peace, this clarity, this moment of rest, not just for myself, but for the relief of suffering for all. This continuous, selfless dedication is the highest form of dana and the ultimate expression of karuna. It prevents the ego from clinging to even the most subtle forms of spiritual achievement. When the mind wants to cling to the feeling of, I had a good meditation today, the dedication says, this good feeling is not mine. It is the shared joy of all beings. The clinging is instantly broken, and the heart remains open, light, and free. As you lie here now, you have reached a quiet, peaceful state. This state is not accidental. It is the merit of your effort, your sustained attention, your intention to be present, your willingness to listen.
Do not claim this peace only for yourself. Perform the final, beautiful act of the Bodhisattva vow. Take a slow, deep breath, and as you exhale, imagine you are radiating this feeling of peace, this quiet ease, out from your body and into the surrounding space. Whisper the deep intention. I dedicate the rest and comfort I receive in this moment to the peace and well-being of all beings. May every person who lies awake in fear find the deep, soft solace that I feel now. May every heart consumed by resentment find the freedom of forgiveness. May every mind trapped by anxiety find the quiet space of the present moment. This act of dedication is the ultimate release. By giving away the fruit of your practice, you ensure that the fruit can never be lost. It is no longer a fragile personal possession, but a part of the vast, inexhaustible treasury of the universe. The peace you dedicate returns to you, multiplied, because you have aligned your heart with the boundless flow of existence. This total dedication is the only foundation that can withstand the inevitable reality of impermanence. The ancient wisdom offers us the 5 remembrances, not to create fear, but to ground our lives in reality, and to inspire this very dedication. They remind us that the separate self, the one we try so hard to protect and save, is an illusion anyway. I am subject to aging. There is no way to avoid aging. I am subject to illness. There is no way to avoid illness. I am subject to death. There is no way to avoid death. I am subject to separation from all that is dear and beloved to me. I am the owner of my actions, my karma, and I am heir to the results of my actions. These remembrances sound stark, but when met with the boundless heart of Karuna, they become the most liberating truths. They dismantle the very foundation of the small, grasping ego. If I am subject to aging, illness, death, and loss, then what is the point of relentlessly striving to be perfect, to be forever safe, to be permanently in control? The only lasting, unshakable safety is found in the quality of my presence in this moment and the boundless love that flows from my heart. The vow of the Bodhisattva takes this harsh truth and turns it into a joyous mission. Yes, I will lose everything, but because I will lose everything, I will spend the time I have in the profound, simple service of love. This understanding is the final, profound invitation to rest. When you surrender to sleep tonight, you are practicing a small, conscious death. You are releasing the day, releasing the self you were, and moving into the unknown territory of the darkness. You are, in miniature, enacting the great final surrender of the body. If your mind resists, if it struggles, if it tries to pull you back to the familiar landscape of worry, remember the compassionate wisdom of Kasanti. Do not fight the struggle. Do not add the second arrow of self-judgment. Instead, meet the resistance with the quiet, firm gentleness of the patient ascetic. Say to the tired, fearful mind, I see your fear. I will be patient with you. I will not leave you alone in the dark. We are letting go, together, with love. The courage to let go is the final measure of your compassion. It is the wisdom that knows that to receive the gift of tomorrow's life, you must completely surrender the life of today.
Allow your entire body to sink now. Let the last vestiges of effort dissolve. You have done the work. You have performed the dedication. You have made the vow. There is nothing left to hold on to. You are safe. You are connected. Your heart is boundless. The path of compassion is not about reaching an end. It is about living every moment with an ever-deepening tenderness. Tonight, your practice is simply this: to rest completely as an act of pure love for the entire world. Sink now into the boundless peace that is the true, ultimate home of the compassionate heart. May you be peaceful. May you be well. May you be completely free from suffering.